Welcome back to Badass Websites here in BOMU. Currently we're in Module 1, Website Basics, and we're in Lesson 3, Choosing Your Domain. In this lesson, you will learn how to choose a good domain, do's and don'ts of choosing a domain name, and how to purchase your domain. If you already have your domain, this is still a very good lesson because the concepts we're going to be talking about may make you just rethink the domain name you currently have. So let's talk about what a good domain name is. A good domain name is easy to spell, it's easy to speak, and it's easy to remember. So let me hit those points one by one. You want it to be easy to spell for the obvious reasons. You don't want to lose traffic to a difficult to spell domain name. And a difficult to spell a domain name could be cute misspellings of words. If you're using your name, if your name has multiple spellings, people don't know how to spell it. If you're using any words that people don't quite like a complicated brand name as well. So you want to make sure that your domain name is easy for people to spell as much as possible. Regarding easy to speak, when you're talking about your website in interviews or video or a podcast, you want to make sure that your domain name is easy to speak. So when you're thinking about options for your domain name, go ahead and try to speak it a lot. Just to practice, how does it sound in an interview? How does it sound if someone can't see it written down and they're hearing the website instead? So choose one that's easy to speak. You want to also choose a domain name that's easy to remember. Your domain name should be super easy for people to remember if they've only heard it once. Creating a domain name that's difficult to remember only makes it harder for people to find your website. For example, people could never remember youronlinegenius.com. They were always saying, oh, that genius website for Bobby Klink. So we moved it to bobbyklink.com instead, and it made it much easier for people to find us. So we used to use our brand name, Your Online Genius, but now we use Bobby's name. Also, consider buying alternative spellings. If your domain name has multiple spellings, or if you're using your name and your name has multiple spellings, consider buying all the alternate spellings to avoid losing traffic to misspellings. So here's an example: drsarah.com versus drsarah.com. So I'm sure these domains are already taken, but if you were to use something like this, people won't know if they're spelling doctor completely or just dr, or if it's Sarah with an H or Sarah without an H. Another example is bobbyklink.com and bobbyklink.com. So oftentimes people forget the C in Bobby's name, so we got both spellings just in case. When choosing your domain name, always remember this: prioritize clarity over cleverness. As fun as it is to use cute misspellings, it will lose you traffic. So let's talk about website domain don'ts. Cute misspellings, don't do it. Hyphens or punctuations, you want it to be one long string of letters or short string of letters, but no hyphens, spaces, or punctuations. Filler words like the, and, to, etc. Don't put those in because people will never remember if they're in there or not. After listing some ideas, take time to perform some domain research. Make sure you are coming up with multiple ideas before moving into the domain research phase because it's likely that your first choice is not going to be available. So go ahead and make a list of ideas and then start your research. So let's talk about domain research. So first, you're going to perform a domain search on GoDaddy.com. You can pretty much perform the search on any domain registrar out there. I like to go with GoDaddy. It's always been the simplest for me. See if the domain name, so you're going to go through each of the domain names that you listed to see which ones are available. Check off the ones that are available for purchase. You might see that some are premium domains and they are multiple thousands of dollars. You might find one that's $11 or even cheaper than that, depending on if they're running a sale. And then that fee is going to be paid yearly. So you're paying that fee every year to register, unless you are buying a domain outright. So if you bought a premium domain that's thousands of dollars, to keep it registered, you may only have to pay $12 a year, depending on the prices at the time. So paying for ownership for those premium domains usually incurs a higher fee up front, but then registration is the same fee every year and it's a lower fee. Once you find a domain name that works, you'll move on to the next step. So the next step is to perform a Google search. This is really important to do a quick search on Google just to see if anyone has similar names or are using that name in their marketing. So you can see here that we did a quick Google search for youronlinegenius.com, our old domain, and it shows a similar business named My Online Genius, and it happens to be in the same niche. So there could be a lot of crossover confusion there if it was Your Online Genius and then My Online Genius, and we might lose traffic to that other competitor because people aren't going to remember, is it your or is it my? So us switching to bobbyclink.com, this was another reason why we did that. Lastly, get feedback from your peers. Your peers can provide you insight into the clarity of your domain name, so make sure that you're seeking their thoughts, especially if you're choosing a brand name over your own name for your domain. So if you have thoughts and you're kind of waffling over what domain name to choose, go ahead and go to our community and post your thoughts to get feedback from your peers in the BOMU community. And I'm sure you'll get some eyes on it and some thoughts from your peers there. And now it's time to buy your domain. So there's a few things to consider before you purchase your domain. Pick a reputable domain registrar. So once you've thoroughly vetted your domain name, you're ready to choose a domain registrar and buy your domain. Our preferred registrar is GoDaddy if you don't need hosting. So if you're using something like Kajabi, like an all-in-one that doesn't require you to get a separate hosting account, GoDaddy is great. If you need hosting, you can purchase your domain right from your hosting provider. Our preferred hosting provider is SiteGround. Also, get the domain privacy add-on if available. So all domain owner information is accessible on the internet. A lot of people don't know that, but it is, unless you enable domain privacy on your account. So this paid add-on will protect your private information from being viewable on the internet by allowing your registrar to act as the middleman between you and anyone else seeking out the owner of a website. So here's an example. Anyone can go on lookup.icann.org and search a domain to find the owner's information. Domain privacy will swap out your information with that of the domain registrar. So here in this example, I went to bobbyclink.com and to search that on iCann Lookup, and you can see down here at the bottom under registrant that our actual email address and phone number and everything and mailing address has been swapped out for the contact privacy information. And so that protects our personal information for the business from getting out to anyone who wants to look it up. And that's it for lesson 3. So in this lesson, you learned how to choose a good domain. We talked about the do's and don'ts of choosing a domain name and how to purchase your domain name. We also covered that privacy, domain privacy, which is really important. In the next lesson, in lesson 4, we're going to talk about all the core pages you should have on your site. It's a very important lesson. And the purpose of your site pages. So we talked about in lesson 1, the purpose of your website, but each of your core pages on your website also have an important purpose. And we're going to talk about that in the next lesson. I'll see you there.